And what is your YouTube channel, Jen?
I'll send it to you after the call. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
You're welcome. So welcome everyone to our Moms on a Mission call. I do these calls every Monday night, and my mission is to support other moms out there in direct sales or who are entrepreneurial or with the Juice Plus company, kind of find what their mission is and to be inspiring. So my name is Jenny Little, and I'm a senior sales coordinator, and I live just north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. And I'm a mom of 4. I have 2 children of love. They're my stepkids, and I have 2 of my own children, twin boys. And my former profession, I was educational assistant. I primarily worked with children with special needs. And what I loved about my previous job was that it was so rewarding. And it really gave me that sense of giving and that sense of helping. And it really filled my heart that way. Fast forward a couple years, I met my husband, we got married and became pregnant pretty quickly after we got married, and we ended up having twin boys. And when we found out we were having twins, we thought it'd be best that I stay home and raise the boys. It just didn't make sense for me to go out to a job to take care of someone else's children while I paid someone else to take care of mine too. So that was good, and we were financially good. Everything was great. And I knew twins were going to be a lot of work, but honestly, I didn't know what to expect. And I thought I was doing okay. And about a year in, I started feeling like a huge, giant failure. I think in the first 6 months, you're allowed to say, well, I'm a new mom, so that's why the laundry isn't done, or that's why the house isn't clean. But by the year mark, it was still that way. I never had energy to do anything around the house or with my husband's business, or it was just me exhausted all the time. And I felt like a failure as a mom, and I felt like a failure as a wife. And there was that sense that I had of financial contribution that I had lost because I'd given up my job. And at this point, after a year, my maternity ended and I wasn't earning an income. And that was a scary thing for me. I've always been an independent person, and I've always wanted to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. And now I was in a position that I had these 2 little boys dependent on me, and I wasn't making my own money. And that was a really scary spot for me to be. So about a year in, I actually bought a coffee machine for my bedroom. I was exhausted to the point that I couldn't get out of bed without a cup of coffee. And I would lay there and listen to the boys scream on the monitor and felt terrible, but I just couldn't get out of bed. And so I thought, well, I'll buy a Keurig for my bedside table. And that way I could just literally roll over and make myself a cup of coffee and start my day. And that's what I did. And I thought it was a good idea at the time. When my husband came home, he didn't. He thought it was ridiculous. And that's when he said, you got to figure this out because you can't live off coffee. And I kind of reflected on my day, and I was drinking about 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day. And that was just to get by. That wasn't giving me extra energy. That wasn't, giving me the energy to do what I needed to do. It was just basically to stay awake. And I was napping every day at 4. So I decided to reach out to a friend of mine who was a nutritionist, Alyssa Harriman, and I knew she was using the Juice Plus line. I had seen it on Facebook for a good year. I followed her for a good year, and I finally reached out and said, well, what is this stuff? Because I'm doing everything right. I'm eating well, I'm exercising, I'm drinking water, I'm sleeping well, and I still don't have any energy. And I said, how can fruits and vegetables in a capsule help? And I ordered the 3 blends, I ordered the Tower Garden, and I ordered the shakes. And the 3 blend capsules have a variety of 30 different fruits and vegetables in them. And what Alyssa explained to me was that all of those fruits and vegetables are vine ripened, and therefore they're full of the nutrients that my body needed. And what I was eating coming from a grocery store was ripened on a truck up to 2 or 3 weeks being picked in advance. So it just was lacking the nutrition that my body needed. Within 2 days, I messaged Alyssa asking her if there was caffeine in the capsules because I felt phenomenal. I had so much energy. My 5-kilometer walks turned to 5-kilometer runs. I was, cleaning the house and making the bed every morning and playing with the kids. And I just had so much energy and I felt great. And I was giving the capsules, opening them up and stirring them into my boys' cereal. And I had asked her if they had caffeine. because I was giving them to the boys. And she's like, no, that's, your body was just so, not malnourished, but it was just lacking those extra nutrients that you needed. When I signed up, Alyssa kind of said to me, we can talk about the business another time if you want. And I said, well, what is the cost? And I was fully expecting that the cost was going to be around $1,000 to $2,000. Most network marketing companies, you're going to be spending between $5,000 and maybe $1,000 or $2,000 to join. And there are minimums that you're required. You are required to buy so much product yourself. So I was expecting that. And when she said $50, I kind of said, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, it's only $50. And she explained to me, you're not obligated to buy the product. There's no sales minimums. There's, all the benefits of our company, even at the top level of our company as a national marketing director, having a full benefits package. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. And I actually just joined because I had bought the tower and the 3-blend and the complete, and that $50 was saving me around $100 that I was earning back in commission. So it just made sense. About a week later, Alyssa explained to me, if you help a couple other moms who I did know, and I did share with them the energy that I had, she said, if they join your business or if they join as customers, you're going to get a $300 bonus this month. And that was exciting because, like I was saying earlier, I wasn't contributing to the household and it made me feel terrible inside. And I couldn't admit that to my husband because I didn't feel like he would understand that I needed that sense of independence. So that was exciting that I was earning my own money and getting these bonuses, all while helping other moms. And when I shared with other moms how exhausted I was and how I needed that something, they responded back to me with, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Because from, our Facebook posts, everything looks perfect. But when you share with moms, you know what, I was struggling and I was exhausted. And they're like, and then they start telling you their stories, then, it just, all I could see was I was that EA again, helping someone and contributing in such a positive way and earning money and getting to stay home with my kids. And I couldn't think of anything better. So when I really looked at the business, I thought, you know what? I'm not planning on returning to work. So it took me a year after starting my business to earn more than I was earning with my previous job. And all while staying home, not spending money on gas, not spending money on clothing, makeup, hair supplies, and daycare. And that was so exciting for me that I was able to do that. So my mission is just to educate and let other moms know that there is a better option if you don't want to go back to work or if you don't want to work away from home. I know lots of my friends who have called me on the way to work crying because they dropped their son or daughter off at the daycare and they just don't know that there's another way. And me, I was a formerly very shy educator and I felt very comfortable around kids, but talking to adults was very scary to me. And, I'm not a salesperson by any means, but what I've learned in this business and, I've been rather successful being able just to share my story because we all do that anyway. If we eat at a restaurant or we go somewhere, a nice vacation spot, we naturally share that with our loved ones because we want them to have an authentically good experience. And that's all we do with this business. So I want to introduce Kari to the call. Kari's a mom of 4 as well. She has 2 stepkids and 2 of her own as well. And she's a grandmom, which is insane. I didn't know you're a grandmom. And so do you want to share with us your product and business story and what your mission is as a mom in the Juice Plus business?
Sure. Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone that's on here tonight. I'm just going to step back a little bit and give you an idea sort of where I've been coming from. And that goes back like 37 years ago when I was 10. And I grew up where my mom had her first nervous breakdown. And this was pretty scary for my brother and for myself at this point, and it was rather traumatic for us. And from that point, my mom had lived with many mental health illnesses and being labeled manic depressive, bipolar, schizoaffective, and so on. And during all this time, mostly through my teenage years, which I found the most difficult, she was put on many medications, in and out of hospital, had electric shock therapy, and had numerous psychiatrists that she had to see on a regular basis. And because of all the medications that she was on, her kidneys failed her. And for the last 8 years, my mom lived on dialysis, and she also acquired another illness of Alzheimer's. And so, as I was saying, through my teen years, this was absolutely, horrifying for myself. And I found it difficult, and I became depressed. And I really struggled to get out of bed. I didn't care, how I looked, what I ate, even what I did. And I chose to have very unhealthy ways of dealing with this, and that included drinking and drugs. And I'd pull away from loved ones, shut out friends, and withdrew from everything that I enjoyed. And this sort of went on until I was about 46. And through my 20s, I was put on antidepressants. And I had the opportunity, actually, through my working, I've done a lot of things. And one is I worked for Canadian Mental Health. And for the first time in my life, this really opened up my eyes and my heart. And I realized how many other people were suffering with mental health illnesses and really felt alone. And for myself, I knew that I didn't want to go on the path that my mom had gone with prescriptions anymore. And I knew I didn't want my kids to see any more of my depressive episodes because it was very hard on all of us. So at this point, I knew I had to do something, and I took better care of myself, and I ate a little bit better, and I got more exercise, and I reduced some of the stress in my life, and I decided to go off my medication. But I still had bouts of depression, and I knew as well that there was a huge correlation between nutrition and mental health illnesses. And when you feed your body with good quality nutrition and the right nutrition, it can certainly make a difference with depression. And so I had a friend who cared enough to share Juice Plus with me. And when she shared it with me, it just made sense. It was all of these amazing nutrients that could get into your body. And not only did it make sense, it made a huge difference. This is the first time I've ever lived without being depressed. So it's almost been 2 years. I look better. I feel better. My immune system is so much stronger. I used to get sick all the time, all winter long with colds. I was put on 2 puffers every winter for bronchitis, and often on the verge of pneumonia. Same with my youngest son. And I'm off of my meds, and both of us have not been sick. I've had 1 cold in like a year and a half, which is crazy considering how many colds I used to have. And now I enjoy life. I have a purpose of wanting to get out of bed. I feel great. I do the things that I enjoy doing. And so I decided when I started to do this too, because I had part of my job was also self-care. And so I have done massage. I had my own business where I would do massage and reflexology, and I was going to speak to a group of women. And I thought as well, how can I go and tell them if I'm not really looking after myself? And so this all came about at the same time. And so I started it for a month, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to join the business if I notice all these changes within myself. And I did. And for $50, again, it just made sense to me. Why not? And since then, for my business part of the story, I've been able to travel. I've been able to meet so many like-minded women, or women and people, guys included, who are part of this amazing Juice Plus family. And they're always there to support you, to cheer you on, to help you reach your goals, help you succeed. I love that I can do business from wherever I am, and any time of the day or night that I want to. And all I need is Wi-Fi and my phone even. It's that simple. Another part for myself of why I really want to do this business, my husband was in a major accident just before Christmas, the week of Christmas. And he broke his back in 2 places, so he's not able to work at this point. So I'm very fortunate that I've had this as my plan B, and now it's going to become my plan A. And I love that I can wake up every day to inspire other people, give them joy, hope, for them to live a healthier life with purpose that they would like. And so there's my story. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And you know what, like that sharing that vulnerability, I'm sure is a big deal. So what kind of advice would you share with someone that had a powerful story that was maybe uncomfortable with sharing personal details of their life?
Well, I know one thing that really hit home with me is there was one lady at one of the conferences, and this lady was very uncomfortable, and she's made it to the top of our position. And she was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even order a pizza from her own house calling on the phone. And one of the things that she said was, become comfortable being uncomfortable. And so it's just to be able to speak from your heart, and just share your story, really, and become comfortable with that. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, because, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't feel like they can share personal things, especially when it comes to something like mental illness, which is still something there's such a stigma attached
Absolutely.
to. And I think it makes people feel more comfortable to share those things. So what was one of the number one challenges that you had when you first started your business?
Probably talking to people. And just learning. It's such a learning curve, and realizing that perhaps things that I did that were mistakes are not necessarily mistakes. You learn from everything. And so just to be able to talk, again, from the heart, and just wanting to help people, if they're interested, they are. If they're not, they're not. And it's just for us to pass on the information, and not, for them to decide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're wellness educators. And
Right.
One of the things that Alyssa said to me early on, because I felt like I just had to puke it all over everyone. But one of the things she said is, Jen, we're not here to change people's minds. We're just here to find the people that, are like-minded to us and are looking for a solution. Just like, I was looking for a solution to my issue. And and I always think about that when I do talk to people. I share, and it's like throwing something against a wall. Sometimes it's sticking and sometimes it won't stick, and oh well, just move on, right?
Right.
I know a lot of new distributors get discouraged because they'll hear 10 no's before they hear a yes. So what do you do, and what do you share with your distributors when they are getting discouraged?
Just to keep going, no matter what, keep going. We all have bad days, or a bad moment. And it's to learn from that moment and just keep going. Go for no, because the more no's people hear, or the more no's you hear, you're eventually going to hear a yes. But not just that, it's about planting seeds,
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't for this person at this time, but who knows what's going to happen down the road, where it's going to be something that they're interested in, again, for whatever reason, right? Whether it's health, whether it's financially, and just keep going, keep talking about it, and never, ever, ever give up.
Yeah, I think that's perfect advice. I remember, I followed Alyssa for a year. I followed her for a year on Facebook before I reached out. I remember at our last conference, Teresa Fisher said the only difference between a distributor and a national marketing director is a national marketing director, didn't give up. And, we'll all eventually get there. There's no backwards in our business. So, we'll all eventually get there. So, and I always say to my distributors, don't worry about the time. Just do it in your time.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Kari, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
So next time I'm going to unmute JoAnne before I introduce her. Geez. I'm going to introduce JoAnne. JoAnne lives with her husband in Alliston. And JoAnne, we've met a few times actually at regionals and things like that. And I've invited her on the call to share her product and business story and her mission. Do you want to take it from here, JoAnne?
I will. Thanks so much, Jen, for having me on today. I do appreciate it. My story, not unsimilar to Kari's, actually. So my story really started probably the end of 2013, is when I really started to figure out that something wasn't quite right. And actually, it was a coworker of mine during a meeting that looked at me at the end of that meeting and said, "My friend, I think you need some help. I know what you're going through. I've been through it." And I didn't realize what she was talking about. And I said, "Well, I hemmed and hawed about it." But, I realize now, looking back, I worked all day, I worked all night, I worked all weekend. Nothing was getting done. I could accomplish no tasks at all, be it at work or be it at home. I found myself crying, coming home at the end of the day, crying my eyes out, telling my husband, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. Sadly, my position, my job was the springboard into depression and anxiety, where on July 10th, 2014, the day I'll never forget, I actually left work and don't remember driving to the doctor. But I do remember being there and him saying that, you've got severe clinical depression and anxiety. Just the diagnosis itself took me back. I remember when I was a young child, twice my mom attempted suicide, and I was the one that found her both times. And I certainly didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be in that frame of mind. So the diagnosis itself certainly took me back. I knew I was stressed out, and I knew that my job had done that to me, but I didn't think it was to that degree. And the next, probably year and a bit was simply hell. Hell for me and hell for my family. Very much like Kari, I turned everybody away. I shut everybody out of my life. I took everyone off Facebook. I didn't even go on Facebook at that point. But I do remember taking everybody off before I stopped going on. I had 2 hiding spots. I would hide either in a bathtub. Not that I cleaned or washed myself. It was more to be away, more to be shut out, and didn't want to be around my husband or around my family. We lived on 2 separate levels of our house. So if he was on the bottom floor, I'd be on the top floor, and if he was vice versa. There were no days that were good by any stretch of the imagination. And it was a time that was very dark. It's really the only thing I can say. It was just a very dark place. Not that I ever got to, thankfully, the space of suicide, but I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be around. And I completely checked out. There's really no other way to put it into words of being checked out of my life. So again, I either hid in my bathtub or I hid in my basement. There was just 2 places that I could actually be alone, and I was completely fine with that. They were, the days turns to night, the night turns to day. Weeks and months went by, and there was really no relief. So, July 10th, when I was diagnosed, I was put on medication, and it was a hamster wheel of medication, right? So you start off pretty slow, and then you go all the way up that medication road until the point where it's not really doing anything. So you have to come down a little bit to go back on something else, and then it just goes around and around in a circle. And I'm not a medication type person. It's something I never really enjoyed doing. I've suffered from migraines my entire adult life, and I would only take a medication if I really, really had to. So I knew that medication wasn't what I wanted to be on, but at that point in time, it did what it needed to do. I wasn't better from it. I was medicated. And in amongst all of that as well, I actually hadn't slept in over 9 months, or just about 9 months. And my doctor kept saying, you need sleep. In order for your body to heal, you need to sleep. And knowing that was my mom's way out, if you will, there was certainly something that I didn't want to take. Anything that I needed to be could become addicted to, or anything that I would need to be on for the rest of my life. So I did relent, and I did finally take something so that I could sleep, but it wasn't anything that was supposed to be habit forming. So, but I never really felt better from it. I never really got I did sleep, although I don't know that it was sleep so much as it was just completely knocking me out, but I certainly did feel side effects throughout it. And it was a chance meeting in August at the Alliston Potato Festival where I see my nutritionist that I'd worked with a few years previous to that. And she just took one look at me and said, what the hell happened to you? What's wrong? And all you had to do was look at my face. There was no life in it. There was no sparkle in my eyes. It was just like I was a zombie. I was there in body, but I was not there in mind nor in spirit. And so Julie took a look at me, and she said, you've got to come and see me. I told her what was happening, or what had happened to me. And she said, well, I've got a product that has had some good results with people with depression and anxiety. And I said, okay, I can't say that I was really believing her, although, I would do anything that Julie would suggest me do. But so I took the product, and she said there was a meeting coming up with Dr. Mitra Ray that I should probably attend. And at that point, I really wasn't even going out of my house. It was too much to get dressed. It was too much to wash my face, brush my teeth. But I went to this event in Aurora, and I heard Dr. Mitra Ray speak. And, you know, she didn't know me from Adam. I don't know if she even knew Julie, frankly, but she got up and she talked about, you know, depression and anxiety, and pretty much reiterated everything that Julie had said. And then she said it's been known to help people come off of their medications for depression and anxiety. And I remember being in that meeting, putting my hand up and saying, just sign me up. I'll do whatever I got to do. Just sign me up. I need to be on this stuff. And I did. I went on it, and I, you know, not really noticing much difference as far as my depression and anxiety went at the beginning. But because I wasn't really taking care of myself, my hair did feel better. I wouldn't wash my hair in 3, 4, 5, 6 days. It just took too much out of me to do. My skin was better, and I wasn't even washing it. And I've had, you know, the T-zone oily skin my entire life. And all of a sudden that started getting better. And these were all things that were happening, and I didn't even realize until after the fact. And it took a while, and I remember when I first started going out into the world again, I met some folks with Juice Plus, and I remember one lady, our national marketing director, Monique, saying her husband had battled as well, and she said, you know, take as much as you can physically afford to take. It's just food, it's not going to hurt you. So take as much as you can afford to take. And so I remember that always. And you know, on days when I didn't really feel all that great, I would double up or I would triple up. And slowly, you know, as the months went by, I certainly started to feel a little better. And it got to the point where I could. And in May of 2014, unbeknownst to my family, because I think if I told them what I was going to do, they probably would have had me committed. But I cold turkey stopped all my medications. I don't recommend that to anybody, but I did. And I tripled up prior to, and I tripled up after, because you have some nasty, nasty things that happen to your body when you stop that medication, because it's the chemicals and what it does to you is so horrible. But I did, and every day got better, every day less brain zaps that were happening. And it took about a week and a half, not quite 2 weeks, and all of my symptoms from coming off my medications were gone. And it was then at that point that I told my family that I'd stopped my medication. You know, in dealing with Julie off and on throughout my beginning of my journey, anytime that I talked about the potential of having to go back to work, knowing that that's what put me in my position that made me sick, she knew I didn't want to go back to that. There was no way that I could put myself through that again, or put my family through that. I mean, I went through my version of hell. My family, more specifically my husband, went through his own version of hell, watching me downward spiral and know that there's nothing he could do about it. And she sent me a text one day, and all it said was, I have a business opportunity for you. And I sent a word back, and I said, intrigued, what does that really mean? And she told me about the business side of Juice Plus. And, you know, my big thing now is, you know, at the end of May 2014, my life took an upward bound where I was able to become free of medication. I no longer needed it. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm vibrant, I have my life back. I have love in my life, and I'm able to share that with people. But more importantly, if I can give an inch to any person that Julie gave to me for anything, be it, you know, mental health, be it weight loss, be it fibromyalgia, be it whatever that is for that individual, then that's what I'm here to do. You know, I never had passion for my job. It was a job. I now have passion to be able to help somebody, and you know, sometimes they might not see it right from the get-go, and sometimes it takes, you know, a couple of conversations, be it weeks, months, and I'm willing to wait years for some people. But if I can give somebody an inch of what Julie gave me, she gave me my life back. And I've told her both privately and publicly, that not only did she give my life back, but she actually saved my life. And that is something that I will be forever grateful for her, and for this product. It'll be something that I never don't take a day in my life from here moving forward.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I had no idea. And I think that's what happens, is that we see people, we meet people, and we have no idea what's going on or what has happened in their past. And I find that this Juice Plus community is all about supporting each other and sharing and loving and being there, regardless of your background or your gender or, your team or what have you. So one of the things you mentioned was, how could you not share this? And you're so thankful that she did share it with you. I know I've given Alyssa crap before for not sharing this with me, because I actually had to reach out to her. But for those of you familiar with the Oliver Bryan story, one of the things he says is, I have a moral obligation to share this with people. So how do you share Juice Plus? Do you wait for someone to reach out to you, or do you actively introduce yourself and the product to them?
No, I mean, I'm getting a little bit more bold in my approach. So even today, actually, there was a lady that I met through a networking group months ago, and we've connected on Facebook, and she happened to put a post on today about fibromyalgia. And so I sent her a private message, and I said, I've seen that you put a post on. Is that something that you're battling with? And she said, actually, for 20 years, but she's non-medicated. She wants to do things a little bit on a more natural route than medication. And I said, well, I've got this product. She goes, oh, I know, I've heard all about it. Everyone tells me all these things. And I said, and I can imagine that you have, and, everyone's got a story and everyone's got a product that I think is going to help. But, if you're open to it, let me just send you some information. Let me send you some testimonials. I do have a customer today that is battling fibromyalgia. She was diagnosed almost 2 years ago. And she's already now able to cut her medications in half, and she's only been on the product for not even 9 months. So, but no, I'm becoming more bold. I can honestly say it was something I would never have done before. But when I hear someone's story, or when I hear them talking, or if they're posting on Facebook about them not being well, then I do reach out. I do it privately, and I tell everybody it's because I care that I share. So specifically with people that I work with, that I know that they're all going. There's 6 of us off in my department with the same thing. 6.
Oh, wow.
And I've reached out to 4 of them. The others I have no contact with, but and I've said the same thing of all of us. I'm the only one medication free. So there's got to be something to this if we're all the same. I had a GAF score of 45, and Kari, you may know what that means. Others might not, but a GAF score basically is it's up to 100, and mine was 45, which basically meant I did nothing except just lay there. I didn't have energy to move or whatever. So I'll reach out when I hear a story. I'll reach out to people that I know are battling, and I won't give up on them.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And you know what, we've heard it so many times in our business that we're paid storytellers, and, you reaching out just like, hey, this was my story. This is what I went through, and this is what helped me. And, for me personally, it's not something I've battled on and off with, but I definitely have had my bouts. And like you were saying, going on medication, what I found was, you go to the doctor, they write you a script and say, see you later. That was my experience. And I didn't have any support, and I didn't know that you can't just stop your medication. And I became very ill, to the point I was bedridden because I didn't know. And then, then you sent to the hospital, and then you see another doctor, they give you a script for another medication. And it's just this cycle. And it took me a long time to get off those medications. And I wish that I had Juice Plus to help my body, basically detox from that. So it's so great that you are able to get off that, because it's a scary cycle, and you're feel dependent, and you're a zombie. like you're literally a zombie. You can't even feel any emotion. And that's certainly not, you know, a good way. You know, it's not a good way to live a life. And if there are better ways. So how would you describe the community? Because I think some people that look at our business think they sign up and they never hear from anyone ever again, and they're on their own and they're lost. So how would you describe our Juice Plus community?
Well, the way I explain it to people, and actually I met with a gal today, it is the first, and I've been in the corporate world for over 30 years. This is the first time I've ever truly felt and understood what team meant and what community meant. I mean, Jen, you and I are on completely different teams, as it were, in this company, but it doesn't matter if we're sideline, upline, downline, the head of the highest paid person in this organization, or even in MLM, they're going to love on you, and they're going to hug on you, and they are never going to give up on you, and they're going to welcome you with open arms. It doesn't matter what you look like on the inside or on the outside. You know, the gal that I talked to today, I've invited her to a women's empowerment lunch that we're having on Wednesday, and she needs to lose 100 pounds. That's her quote, not mine. And she says, I'm too embarrassed. And I said, people are going to love you, they're going to welcome you, and they're going to love on you. They're not going to look at what your body shape is. They're going to look at your eyes, and they're going to say, welcome. Yeah. And that has been with every single individual I've met, right up to people that make, money that I can't even fathom to make. And they just want to help. They just want to help me succeed. Help me succeed. No one's ever wanted to help me succeed. And want my dreams and wishes to come true. Nobody. But now I'm in that community.
Mm-hmm. And I totally hear that, because the only time that anyone has ever wanted you to succeed was when it was going to benefit them somehow. And right. I find with our business, it's just like, I want to help anyone succeed, and it's not going to benefit me, but it's going to benefit me in the way that I'm a human being and I have a big heart and I want to just help. Right. Yeah. And I think that that is lost in, corporate society or in work. I think it becomes so competitive, and quite literally the only competition that we have in the Juice Plus community is the person we were yesterday. As corny as that sounds, there is no competition, because the success of my future has nothing to do with my upline, my downline, or my sideline. Nothing. It's up to me to get where I want to go. And there's every single person on this call is a sideline to me. And, it's up to me to get there, and everyone is there to help.
That's right.
What were one of the first kind of challenges that you had with the business?
Getting over myself. And, I had a lot of, people can say they were excuses, but they were my realities. So I was on a medical leave. And when you're on medical leave, paid by an insurance company, you can't make money. Mm. And so that held me back. I couldn't get out of my own way because of that. And then when I was clinically cleared to go back to work, my company, thankfully, didn't have a position available for me. So they put me on a temporary layoff. So then you go on EI. Mm. You can't really make a lot of money on EI. So again, that held me back. Again, those were, to some people, those are excuses, but those were just my realities of what I was limited to be able to do. I needed a paycheck coming in. I couldn't not be on EI or be on leave of some sort to get some sort of money. So my biggest setbacks for me, number one was me and getting out of my own way. And once I got out of my own way, things did start to happen. And once I was able to clear off and be finally packaged out or severanced off from my company, was a big weight lifted off my shoulders that I can go and move forward and set some, attainable goals. I just hit sales coordinator in December, and I've got a goal of senior sales coordinator by next spring's conference. So that's where I'm looking at.
Amazing. Good for you. Mm-hmm. So one last question. What kind of advice would you give to someone that's looking at the business or has just joined the business?
Really just a lot of what Kari had said as well. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the product. I think if you have a good, I think if you're not, I think if you're a believer in the product, the belief in yourself will come.
Mhm.
You know, one of my biggest things is, you know, I could never be a Julie, and I realized quite quickly I don't have to be a Julie. I just have to be me. So if people are honest to themselves about themselves, and are believers in the product, the belief in themselves will come, and that's the biggest thing is believing in yourself, and knowing that you can't help everybody. You know, there's people out there that have said no, and that's okay, because they're not ready.
Right.
You know, whether it's not their time or whether it might not never be their time. There are just some people that either want to remain sick, or some people that just don't have enough belief in themselves to want to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, what you said about, you know, that you could never be a Julie. I think a lot of the time we look at maybe our upline or our sponsor, right, and we're just like, oh, like, you know, my sponsor is a nutritionist who's a brilliant woman. I mean, every time I hear her speak, she blows my mind again. Like the amount of knowledge is in her head. I can't even fathom it. But, and I just thought, well, I can't do that. But then I realized I don't have to do that. I'm Jenny. I'm not Alyssa. And I have to share this my way, because maybe the way I share it is going to resonate with some people that the way somebody else shares doesn't. And just kind of, you know, go at your own pace and just keep going. And you don't have to worry about meeting a certain, like, I think a lot of people join and they feel like they have to get to certain levels and they make this timeline in their head. And it's like, hey, if you don't do it in 5 years, then it'll be 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And that's very important, because that's important too, Jenny, because, you know, I was slow like a tortoise because I had to be. I didn't have the mental capacity to be able to speak to the product, to be able to speak my story. I just didn't have it in me. And it took a long time to learn that. And all of my distributors that I've signed so far, I've said the same thing to. I'm never going to be one to push you. You know, here's the product, and here's the timelines. I'll never, you know, if you've got money that's close to, I don't want you to leave money on the table. So it's my responsibility to let you know what's there for you to do. But I'm slow like the tortoise. And if you want to be like the jackrabbit, go right ahead. That's fantastic.
right.
And if you can do it, great. But if you're going to be slow like the tortoise, like me, great. Absolutely. I'm there 100% beside you, whatever way you decide to get it, whatever your road takes you, that's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with our team, it's the same thing. Like, I'm here to educate you and tell you, you know, what you can do. And I always explain to my team, you know, I'm not saying this because I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just letting you know what, you know, you need to do in order to get to this level, or you need to do before the end of the month or whatever. If you want to run with that, awesome. If you don't, it's not a big deal. But if I don't share that with you, then it's me holding you back. But if I do share it with you, it's totally up to you. And same thing with prospects and customers. Hey, I'm sharing a product with you. It makes sense to me. If it makes sense to you, awesome. Let's talk more about it. If not a big deal. So thank you so much, ladies. I'm going to open up the line. So if anyone has any televisions or screaming children in the background, close the door. My kids are hiding upstairs. But I'm just going to mute the line. So if you ladies have any questions, or if you have any comments that you want to make, feel free. And thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your stories with us. It was an amazing call.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? We're good. Now, you had talked about your, is it teammate or friend that was suffering from fibromyalgia? Is she a teammate?
She just became a team member, yes.
Is she a mom?
Yes.
I would love to get her on a call, because I think that's one of those, if she is comfortable, I think sharing that, that affects so many people. And I think I would love to be able to share that and have a recording of her story, so that, you know, we can share that with even more people. So if nobody has any comments or questions, I'm going to end the call. So thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you all, the people that came on tonight. I know it's a good 30 or 40 minutes away from your loved ones, or from television or work. So thank you so much for spending that time with us. I will also be recording this call, so you can find that on my YouTube channel, and I'll send it to Kari and JoAnne. So whoever's on the call, you guys can message them for the link. So thank you so much, and have a good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jenny.
Bye.
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 Thank you.